Responsible gun owners are fed up with the Second Amendment being abused and hijacked by some deranged individuals.
So Matthew McConaughey, on behalf of the White House, gave an impassioned speech. Many people on the left obviously are praising it. The left-leaning media is going absolutely just climactic for it. I mean, this is just the stuff that in their mind orgasms are made out of. Even faux pas news, formerly known as Fox News, big headline with McConaughey and his picture, and they've been featuring him and talking to him, and they keep using that word reasonable. Even gun owners want reasonable gun laws, and so here we go. Matthew McConaughey comes out, and again, I have nothing personal against Matthew McConaughey. I believe he's a decent guy. He went to Uvalde, Texas, right after he learned of the shooting. He and his wife spent a lot of time there with the families, grieving with them. I have no doubt this hits very close to home for him. I don't doubt that he isn't very impassioned and believes what it is he is standing up there saying. He's a dad, and all of us have been through situations where we hugged our kids a little tighter. I was pastoring in New York when 9/11 happened. Can I tell you that night I hugged my kids a whole lot tighter, and it was an eerie, weird time. And I remember just sitting there with my kids piled in on the chair with me. I have 4 kids, and they're 2 years apart. And youngest one in diapers, the oldest one was 8, and had all the kids piled in the chair with me as we watched some of the coverage on the news. And I understand that he's an impassioned dad. He's spent a lot of time now with parents who are obviously devastated, heartbroken, and some of them, this absolutely just senseless, horrific tragedy, want to get something positive out of it. So there he stood telling the kids stories, holding up their artwork, talking about the things they wanted to be when they grew up. And no one with a heart, no one with any compassion can listen to that and not be drawn in emotionally. But then, of course, he makes the change that in order to deal with this horrific problem, we've got to have laws. More laws.
We need responsible gun ownership. Responsible gun ownership. We need background checks. We need to raise the minimum age to purchase an AR-15 rifle to 21. We need a waiting period for those rifles. We need red flag laws and consequences for those who abuse them.
So he begins by saying we need background checks. Matthew, we have background checks. You cannot buy a firearm from a legal gun dealer, even at a gun show. You cannot buy a firearm from a legal gun dealer, a licensed gun dealer. You cannot buy one if you do not pass an FBI background check. Your name gets put into the FBI database. If it comes back clean, you have a clean bill of health. If it doesn't come back clean, you don't leave the store or that venue with the weapon. That is how it already works. This idea that there are no background checks is absolutely, it is a lie. It is misinformation. Funny thing is, though, the people that keep perpetrating that, they don't get kicked off any social media platforms for spreading, quote, disinformation. But then he goes on to say that purchasing the AR-15, you need to be 21. Okay, now here's where I understand that we have rights in this country, but even rights come with obviously laws and ways to guide them. Just because you live in the United States is no guarantee that you're, going to be given a driver's license. There is criteria that you have to meet and be able to pass a driver's test. But the Second Amendment right is given to us, and it is given to legally recognized United States citizens. And when do we recognize someone as being a citizen of the United States who really gets to participate in the system? Well, in our country, it's the age of 18. So if you want to raise the purchase of an AR-15 from 18 to 21, then shouldn't the voting age be raised to 21? Because after all, this is my issue with this. I don't know how we say an 18-year-old is not responsible enough to purchase and own this firearm. But that same 18-year-old, if they put on a Marine uniform or Army fatigues and they serve in the military, we may give that same 18-year-old a far more deadlier weapon and turn them loose on foreign soil somewhere that whatever the powers that be at that time deem as a, quote, necessary war for democracy, yada, 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 blah, 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 blah. And that same young person who can't legally go purchase an AR-15 for themselves, but can be given something far worse, far bigger, far more deadly when the government puts it in their hands and now, see those people over there that we don't like? Point the gun in that direction and pull the trigger. Now think about that. Think about that. Let that swirl around a little bit. And then these red flag laws that they love to talk about. How many of these incidents have we had happen where local law enforcement was already well versed on this individual? I think of the Parkland shooting. But thanks to President Barack Obama, who wanted to make sure that minority kids were not constantly being seen as the juvenile delinquents and students of creating problems within the schools, and then incentivizing the blue state mayors and school superintendents to do everything they can to, on paper at least, look like they're graduating more kids and not having them quit school and drop out or be thrown out or kicked out. They basically threw all the standards away and they let these kind of kids stay in school who then had access and then committed some pretty heinous acts, despite the fact that they had been all over Facebook and other places, making all kinds of violent threats, violent accusations. So you want to talk about red flag laws? Where are the parents? Don't parents know when they got a kid that's kind of unstable? And again, we don't want to really break down what the problem here is. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But Matthew McConaughey is doing the typical, we got to have more laws. We got to have more laws. Let's be really clear here, Matt. And I think you're a good guy. But this was an evil, vile person who walked into the school and pulled that trigger. Anyone that walks into a school or a place that's just filled with innocent people, and especially children, and just get some type of sick enjoyment out of shooting somebody in the face and killing them, barges into a classroom and screams, "You're all gonna die." You do understand, laws don't stop that. This is evil, this is vile, and we are in the shape we're in, and I keep saying this. We have 79,000 pages of federal law in this country because man couldn't obey God's original 10. What makes you think that one more law is going... And please explain to me how raising the age from 18 to 21 on this one particular weapon, the AR-15, because it's evil and it's scary. Do you know there are other weapons? Remington makes one that shoots the exact same round as an AR-15, shoots it exactly the same way that the AR-15 works. It's not on anybody's list. It's perfectly okay. See, you've allowed the left to paint these words like assault weapon. These assault weapons have got to go. And again, these are all created by people who, number one, don't even know firearms. They don't understand how they work, operate, etc. And they make this one scary. This is like blaming the shovel for digging the hole. A weapon is only as dangerous as the person holding it. So this idea, though, that we're going to, quote, we'll just raise the age. Okay. If you're going to do that, then I would say 18-year-olds can't serve in the military. 18-year-olds shouldn't vote. Going to raise voting age to 21, going to raise military service to the age of 21, I'll listen to what you have to say about raising the age to 21. I'm a young person who wants to legally purchase a firearm. But again, these laws that you're proposing are just more restriction on people who are already obeying the law. And I get it. You're emotional. You're hurt. You've talked to a lot of emotionally and hurt people. I get it. And there's this knee-jerk reaction. We got to do something. I agree. But let's do the right thing, not just anything, and then walk away and pat ourselves on the back and say, there, we did it. Because when the next school shooting happens, which it will, because nothing that you have just proposed, Matthew, is going to change any of that, then you've allowed the people that you think that you're helping, that you're being reasonable for, the Democrats, the liberals, you've now let them say, you know what, we tried to do it the reasonable way. We tried, and look, apparently the American citizens are just not able to be trusted with any firearm. We want them all. That's where this is going. And Matthew, in your grief and in your sorrow and in your wanting to be, I believe, a genuine, decent guy helping people, especially in your hometown, don't let the left play you for a fool on this.
Responsible gun owners are fed up with the Second Amendment being abused and hijacked by some deranged individuals.
Now, your comment that law-abiding gun owners are fed up is absolutely true. You don't get what it is we're fed up about. We're not fed up that these deranged lunatics have a Second Amendment right to indiscriminately kill, because they don't. That's not what we're fed up about. What we're fed up about is the fact that we are responsible, legal gun owners following our constitutional rights. And we are sick and tired that every time an incident happens, we, not the criminal, we get blamed. We are reviled. We are the ones that the Chuck Schumers and the Joe Obama Bidens talk down to and say it's us MAGA maggots, it's us gun toters, it's us Second Amendment lunatics that have made this country unsafe for everybody. That's what we're sick of, Matthew. So you're right, we're sick and tired of being blamed. Not sick and tired that lunatics are trying to use the Second Amendment. We're sick and tired of being blamed. Please get that right.
Look, is this cure-all? Hell no.
So after he proposes this gun legislation, you know, that Democrats and Republicans this is something we can agree on, that he's trying to make you think that every Texas Ranger and Border Patrol agent and grieving parent in Uvalde, Texas that he talked to all agree that yes, it is time to have gun laws that protect the schools and keep the guns out of the hands of criminals. But the laws aren't going to do that, because the average criminal doesn't go to a gun dealer to buy his gun. The laws only affect people who obey the law. So you're making it harder for the people who are already obeying the law to obey the law. And again, the whole thing is a ruse and it's a setup, because none of the laws that you have proposed, not one, is going to do a thing to end this violence. And so when it happens again, they're going to come to you and say, well, we tried the whole reasonable, responsible thing. Apparently, the American people just cannot be trusted at all, because you've already got Joe Obama Biden putting that seed out there by saying the Second Amendment is not guaranteed. Don't be played, Matt. Now, when you also say, and you are 100% right, now, will these laws do anything? Hell no. Well, you know what? That you're 100% right on. See, again, on the one hand, you are grieving, you are hurting, you are angry, you are a parent, you're an American, you are looking at this saying, this can't be the country I live in. This we have got to do something. Our lawmakers have got to do something. Then let's do the real something. Let's not do a something that isn't going to actually affect or change anything that's happening, and then pat ourselves on the back that we did something. Let's not waste our energy and our time doing the wrong thing. Let's do the right thing. And you hit on it in the very beginning of your presentation.
We need to invest in mental health care. We need to save for schools. We need to restrain sensationalized media coverage. We need to restore our family values. We need to restore our American values.
And it's interesting, he talked about we need to restrain the sensationalized media coverage. And then he talked about mental health. Well, these sick ticket individuals, most of the time, these are individuals who feel slighted, irrelevant, ignored by society as a whole, whether it's the girl they really like that ignored them, the father that abandoned them, the mother that they think doesn't love them, whatever. All the kids at the school that have constantly dissed them. They're antisocial, removed. And one of these incidents happens, and the media goes berserk. Days and days on end through 24-hour, never-ending news cycles. And all of a sudden now, one of these crazed individuals sees a way of becoming infamous, which in their mind is still famous. So maybe if the media backed off in how they presented all of this, that would be a first step in addressing the mental health aspect. Okay, I get that. But you really got into it when you talked down about we need to get back to our American values. And what exactly are those values, Matthew? Seriously, I want to know. Because on the one hand, we say we can't have this happening in our schools and to our children because these are children. This is innocence being robbed. What about the children we're murdering in the womb? Oh, see, you think I'm changing the subject. No, I'm asking, what are these American values? Values where we are willing to take to the streets and burn a city down when we want to defund the police? So we react violently, and that is explained night after night by pundits as mostly peaceful protests. Those American values? The values that we create a proxy war for profit between Ukraine and Russia. We pushed and made that thing happen, and we are watching tens of thousands of innocent Ukrainian civilians killed and slaughtered so that a few billionaires and the military-industrial complex could make some money. Those values? The values where we mandate, regulate, and if you say anything against it, we're going to censor you, deplatform you, remove you. You don't get to contradict the so-called experts. Those values? What values are you talking about? Because our American values are shattered right now. And then you said family values. I agree. And there becomes the real crux of our problem here. A weapon hasn't changed. America, for most of its history, had guns hanging over the mantelpiece in homes. I know I've used this illustration before, and I know some of you think it's an oversimplification, but I look back at Little House on the Prairie, the TV show, and I know it's not a completely accurate depiction of the books, but it's supposed to represent, life in rural 19th century America. We all know that Laura Ingalls didn't really get along with Nellie. Sometimes, Nellie made life just downright miserable for Laura. You talk about bullying, but you never saw Laura go home, grab Pa's rifle off the mantle, and head back to the Walnut Grove School and shoot it up. My father grew up in the Great Depression, would take his .22 rifle to school when he was in junior high school, leave it in his locker because he was going to go squirrel hunting after school. My father, in fact, the first .22 rifle he ever bought as a teenager, he bought it as a teenager without even an adult having to be with him. Bought it at his local hardware store. Saved up his money, worked, went down, bought it. Bought the ammunition for it. Learned how to clean it and take care of it. I was raised around guns and safety, and I agree with Matthew. We need responsible gun ownership. The problem is there's such a breakdown in the family today. That's the real crisis here. That our society is a reflection of how we have destroyed the traditional nuclear family and traditional family values. You talk about values. The values that we are letting sex predators now loose on our kids in the name of pride and equality and drag queen hogwash that parents are taking their kids to, and their kids are throwing dollar bills at guys twerking. Teachers fighting for the right to talk graphically to kindergartners and first graders about deviant sexual behavior. A welfare system which destroyed black families in this country. That 80 to 85% of black youths are growing up in homes without a dad because the welfare system said to the mother, "We'll be the dad." The welfare system said to the dad, "You can basically have sex without responsibility. We'll pay for the kid." And by the way, sometime we'll do a whole series on how that's actual white privilege racism designed by the Democrats to eradicate the one race that they truly do hate, the black race. Because there's nobody as prejudiced on this planet as white liberals. As the society has gotten away from God. I hate to bring that up, but I am a pastor. We kicked God and prayer and Bible reading and the 10 Commandments out of our public schools back in the 1960s. Have the schools gotten better since then, Matt? And by the way, there are schools where this doesn't happen. Most Christian private schools, this doesn't happen. Why? There's security there. I was the administrator of 4 different schools, and I could tell you the school in Florida, my last administration post, half my staff was carrying. Let's make the school safer. Hey, Matt, I'll bet when you're on set or out on location, I'll bet there's a security detail there watching over you, right? You go to the mall, malls have security cops. Go to a sports or concert venue, there's armed security. Why is there no security at the schools? You keep talking about, we got to pass these laws and get rid of these evil guns. Then they'll use clubs, they'll use bombs, you're dealing with corrupt, evil people because society, we have magnified the deviant, we have outlawed and ostracized and censored and muzzled traditional faith and values. And now you have a society like this, and you're really standing there crying, wondering, why does this keep happening? It must be the gun. What? What? It's the hearts of people. Our values are what's been corrupted and destroyed. And I'm sorry, apart from a good old-fashioned, prolonged revival, what we can do moving forward is place security in the schools. and stop putting people in office that keep thinking of every un-American thing they can do to destroy the Constitution and our government, because they're destroying our way of life and our literal safety. They are the dangerous ones.